Hello, I'm Daniel Brown. I have created the following series of videos as a way to help inspire New Zealand's Pasifika students who may wish to pursue tertiary education, as well as those who have already enrolled in a degree. These videos represent the voice of Pasifika students. They showcase actual student assignments from a wide range of tertiary education disciplines, where our students have fully embraced the Pasifika cultural framework in addressing their assignment. All disciplines can be addressed through your own unique voice. Join us as we journey into the world of risk-taking, coloring outside the lines, creative experimentation, and storytelling. Our goal is to truly cultivate your cultural capital.
Mālola soifua o lo ingo li taro mai lani Mia Ellen. So mai nei o ua sapali ale pata ma Militone ma Peter Maritzburg. Kia ora, talofa. My name is Ditara Mia Ellen. I took the course of Anthropology 315, which is using decolonization for liberation. We had the final assignment to do basically a piece. It could be creative or in an essay format of our learnings and our findings over the semester. And I chose to do a poetry symposium. In my assignment, I chose to display movement on a page. I wanted to take the format that was predominantly a Pākehā format and turn it into something that I would associate with Samoa or even just the movement of waves in the Pacific Ocean. What I did was I wrote various poems or various just ideas on a paper and pretty much put it together to make a conversation between the different poems and different pages to create my final outcome of what I learned in anthropology.
Fa'awhitai, thank you, acknowledgement, thanksgiving. Fa'a, the ways of, to do, to make in motion. Visotai, together, tides, together the tides, to move forward from, to come out of the shadows of mistrust, hatred, prejudice, exploitation, pain. In order for the basket to hold more fruit, the weaver has to have nimble hands. Together the tides is to weave the strands of the fruit basket tighter together, to lalanga the etonga finely, not with big strands leaving space for patience to fall out of. To emancipate, to liberate, to move forward is to give thanks wisely, despite circumstances, with reverence for the changing winds, the fresh wounds, the human era.
I think coming to uni is a special time. I think being able to involve your family in the process is important, and being able to enjoy your learning, not doing your learning out of obligation or anything like that, will allow you to become a better person in the long run as well. Make the most of your time. I think it's easy to see uni as a place where you're going to start your learning, but if you view your experiences and the teachings that your elders and your family have taught you and then apply it to a uni study, all you're really doing is getting recognized for what you already know and then growing from the stuff that you are continually learning throughout life.
Talofa lava, loingo o Ali Leota. I'm a Dunedin-born Samoan. My family hails from the villages of Mulifongua, Apuli Mayuta, Letongo, and Nofoali. I study a Bachelor of Health in Population Health, Policy and Service Delivery. The course was Health and Wellbeing 102, but Health in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And it was more about a submission, because at the time the health was under system review here in government, and one of our assignments for our class was to write a submission on what you want to see as outcome. And my assignment I'd done was around building culture capacity for Pacific in the healthcare industry, in particular around maternity care. There's a real shortage of Pacific midwives nationwide. My mother, she was one of 3 midwives of Pacific descent here in Wellington, so she spent a lot of time outside the house serving the community. So I wrote a submission around building Pacific workforce in midwifery, and it was led by the value of tautua. There's this famous proverb in Samoan, ole ale li pule ole tautua. That means the pathway to leadership is through service. And I guess that underpinned my whole submission to the health system review. Part of the assignment, along with the submission, was a rich picture diagram, and it's just to, I guess, visualize or depict what was written in my submission. And in the rich picture diagram, it's about the journey of a Pacific woman who's pregnant, and she's on a path of 9 months. And there's different options of how midwives become qualified, and the different support networks that are around for Pacific mothers and families. So I was nervous coming to university because first I didn't have university entrance and I didn't do so well at high school. I thought I was a bit out of my league coming to the university, and I just envisioned it was going to be another repeat of NCA where I didn't do so well and didn't really achieve what I wanted to set out to do. But coming to the university is just the environment, the family feel, and the values that the university stands by really built my confidence, and to go ask for help and meet people and surround myself in an environment that people want to succeed. So I think all Pacific people should come to university, whether you're fresh out of high school, you've been working in the employment area for a long time and wanting to upskill. University is a safe space, and it's a place where all Pacific belong, and where we can all walk in as individuals but walk out as families. So, and it's the world's our oyster. So the university is the perfect place for Pacific people.
My name is Conan, and I just finished a paper to redesign the Wellington Public Library in the Civic Square. I felt more connected to my designs when I drew from my own culture. Before, my designs were just trying to hit the assignment grade requirements, but this one was the first one that I actually put some effort into because I felt connected to it. Both Māori and Pasifika people created enormous voyaging canoes that have crossed the ocean for centuries. I interpreted the form of these great canoes as sacred vessels that represent the culture, the history, the explorations, and the lifeblood shared by all Māori and Pasifika peoples. I believe that a central library for Aotearoa's capital city of Wellington must also symbolise our culture, our history, our desire to explore, and our lifeblood. For this reason, when I was asked to design a new central library on Wellington Civic Square for an architecture course, I chose the form of a voyaging canoe. The enormous voyaging canoe of the Māori and Pasifika people represents our knowledge and culture carried across time. It also represents adventure, and as a vessel representing the adventure of new discoveries, it becomes a truly beautiful symbol for a library that inspires inquisitive minds of all people who call Aotearoa their home. As a public library, this vessel symbolically unites the people of Aotearoa and the Pacific people as one community, and it invites them to enter into 1,000 voyages of discovery. I think going forward I'll definitely use my culture in more of my designs. Now I'm working for Pine & Collins Architecture on Manor Street, just as a student helper. I think uni offers more opportunities to people instead of just the standard curriculum that most people, me included, didn't enjoy.
So, hi, my name is Se, which is a short version of Se. I'm Samoan. I studied at Victoria for a PhD in molecular bioscience, and now I'm back home working from Samoa. So I got to learn exciting new science for the first 3 months of my placement at Victoria, and then I hopped on a plane, came back home and collected my plants to bring across for my research. I studied some local plants from Samoa, so I came and collected them from Samoa and brought the plant extract into New Zealand. Some of these plants include plants like matalafi, fuefuesaina, and these are plants that the traditional healers here in Samoa, they generally just mash up at home. They either chop on a chopping board or pound it with a rock. And then they squeeze the juice from those leaf materials, for example, and the juice from that is given to the person who is unwell. So what I did was I came back home, collected these plants, mashed them up with a blender, collected the juice, and then shipped the juice to New Zealand for me to test. One of the plants that I worked with, which is called matalafi, it is mainly used in Samoa as a treatment for supernatural induced ailments. This is the plant that I was most skeptical about. I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's not going to give me anything. But it turned out to be my most potent plant extract. It's also the plant extract here in Samoa is also used for inflammation, for treating inflammation, wounds, and things like that. And my research actually found that there is a correlation between using it to treat inflammation, so it has anti-inflammatory activity, and we figured out in the chemical genetics laboratory how it mediates this anti-inflammatory activity. And in the chemistry lab, we figured out which components or which compounds plant extract were causing this activity to come about. So obviously the findings from my research are very relevant to Samoan scenario. We've come up with a unique way of applying these plants to our everyday lives. This work, although it's done in Samoa, which is a very small platform, it has a lot of potential because we have access to genetic material and also plants and resources that other countries in the world do not have access to.
My mother is a Cook Island Māori and my dad is New Zealand European. Mum migrated to New Zealand when she was 16, so born and raised in the Cook Islands. Growing up, I was able to see quite a lot of the culture that my mum and my grandparents, who were already in New Zealand at the time, brought with them from the Cook Islands. My favourite thing to do at college was painting. I basically had to do math and English in order to continue doing art. And I needed to do another subject, so I chose biology. So then I was like, I need chemistry to complement biology. I was hooked from then on. If I wanted to get a job in science, I had to come to university. So that's how I kind of fell into science. I made this connection to the stuff that my grandmother used to use plants and stuff as traditional medicines as at home for family members. And I was too young to understand, but as I learned about that, I kind of made the connection that, well, plants can actually do things. And so my PhD research looked at Tonga marine sponges and algae. And I basically would take these organisms and I would extract everything out of them, so all chemical compounds out of them. And then I would do purification work. So it would initially be this mixture of compounds, but I would work on it to make them kind of pure components. Once I had pure components, I would solve their structures, get all the chemical data that I needed on them, and then I would submit them for testing to see if they would be active against cancer and fungi, because then they could potentially be used as medicines. I'm from Porirua. I went to Porirua College and I ended up having to leave because I became a young mother at the age of 16, had a second baby by the age of 18. Basically, it was because of becoming a mother that I decided I should really try and make an effort at education. So I went back to school and I went to the school for 10 parents and then eventually ended up at uni. So the entire time I've been at university, I've been raising children. So I guess I see the science that I'm doing as a gift, basically, that links back to my grandmother, and I'm passing onwards to my children.
So I'm Serafina Milbank and I'm Samoan Pakeha. I took a classics course because at high school I'd kind of done all these different things. I wasn't quite sure what I liked, and then I pretty much came into uni and decided that I'd do the exact same thing and just take a whole bunch of different stuff and see how I felt about it all. Yeah. From what I remember, we were given a brief and it was that we had to kind of use ancient Greek techniques and tell a contemporary story with them. I was actually really stressed out about it because there were a lot of people in the class who had kind of this Photoshop background and everything, and they had all these crazy ideas. And then I kind of sat there not knowing much about ancient Greek art techniques because it was just like a lot of new information at once. And then kind of thinking about every single contemporary issue in the world and not quite knowing which one to pick. And then kind of, a few weeks before the project was due, my mum was actually talking about the Samoan disaster. And it kind of clicked that, that was something which I'd seen firsthand the impact of. When the earthquake and tsunami struck in Samoa in 2009, I was very motivated by the tragedy of this event and wanted to be able to tell this story. In my assignment for a classics course, I blended Samoan and ancient Greek culture together. In Samoa, the tapa cloth is designed to tell stories, so I utilised different symbols and figures to portray my story from a Samoan point of view. On one half of the design, I showed how the aftermath of the tragedy affected the people of Samoa, with 2 people mourning those who had died. On the other half of my design, I used the Greek god of the sea, Poseidon, to represent the tsunami and earthquake, causing those around him to stumble and run. For my classics course, I designed my Samoan interpretation of this tragic event as a classical Greek vase that depicts a contemporary retelling of the 2009 Samoan earthquake and tsunami. The wave pattern on the vase represents how subtle the clues were that the tsunami was coming. The dogs at the bottom of the design represent how barking dogs were the only alert system in the smaller villages of Samoa, alerting the people to the danger and guiding them to higher ground. The merging of 2 different cultures shows how such tragic events are experiences shared by everybody. And this project allowed me to engage my Samoan heritage, even in a course like classics, which would normally seem very far removed from Samoa. I think at the time, I didn't quite realise just how special it was. It was kind of just, something which came off the top of my head and I went ahead and did it. But I think since then, seeing the reception that got, and Dinah Burden, who was head of the course at the time, talked to me about it, and she said how impressed she was by it. And I've had a lot of other people come and talk to me about it, which was, it was really awesome to kind of see that I'd done something which was really interesting to people and that my culture was a part of that, and it was something which people were willing to sit down with me and talk about.
Kia ora, my name's Rebecca McKeown. I am a New Zealand-born person of Irish and Cook Island descent, so I'm from Mokea, Akatoka Manawa. I decided to go to university mainly because of my parents' encouragement. Neither of them finished high school. My mum went to Porirua College but couldn't finish, so when she was maybe 40 years old, she decided that she wanted to go back to university. She decided to study full-time, and so I went to uni with her when I was 5 years old. That's how I discovered university. I decided to take commerce because my dad is a business owner. He's a tradie, and he always encouraged me to go out, earn your own money, be your own boss. So that's why I decided to go to the business school. I really wanted to get in touch with my Pacific heritage, so I did Pacific studies. That was one of my majors, and I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to weave the Pacific through my other courses. In my management course, I studied a paper which was all about innovation. So we needed to come up with an idea where no one else in the world had ever done it before, but it had to benefit society as a whole. So we focused on a product made of vetiver grass, and that grass is used to stabilise soil, filter out toxins in water, and it can actually be used as a fuel source. The reason we chose Vanuatu was because when I was doing the course, a cyclone came through and destroyed a lot of the towns and cities, and we thought that stabilising the soil and having some plants there would really help the local villages. So the outcome was quite interesting. We had to work together as a team, an international team from all around the world. I think it made all of us quite hungry to make an impact on the world. We researched what the government could do for us versus what the local organisations could do, and we chose to go through the local route, going through more traditional communication pathways. I think it's really important when you go into a lecture, the first week, that's when you should make your friends, because everyone's nervous, everyone's excited about the course. Yeah, I loved going to uni. I'd go back, for sure.
Maloelele, my name's Javier Latu. I'm born here in New Zealand, but I am 3/4 Tongan and 1/4 Niuean. I took an education paper in my last year, and the first assignment was about what a leader was to us, and we needed to visualize that for the assignment. So for my project, I decided to, using my design background, 3D print a whaikava bowl, or kumete, to symbolize what I thought a leader was. Coming up with that idea at first was quite difficult, but I found that the leadership qualities that I thought, that I admired in people, such as like my lecturers and tutors, even my peers in the past, linked up nicely with the practice of whaikava, and this whole idea of a group of people becoming one. Whaikava is a traditional practice used by Tongans all over the world to reconnect with their cultural heritage. As they drink kava together, they reflect on their past, sing songs both old and new, and share their experiences and knowledge with those around them. This exchanging of knowledge is inherent of the Tongan sense of what a leader is. They are someone who forms strong bonds with those around them and works with them in order to help them grow. I have used the kumete to symbolise this, as it acts as a vessel for growth that also helps provide support for the plant to grow. The 3 legs of the kumete show the need for everyone to work together as one. No matter how strong the other 2 legs may be, alone they won't be able to hold up the plant. The plant itself represents the students' growth and potential. Without the support of their leaders and peers, they will not be able to grow to their full potential. University for me was good. It kind of laid out the path in front of me and showed me where I could go. After 13 years of being in an education system where there's someone at the front of the classroom telling me what I need to learn and how I need to be, at uni, the person at the front of the classroom is one of your peers who's trying to empower you, and they try to encourage you to implement yourself in your work and allow your work to be a reflection of who you are. Picking up different courses, because I studied design, I took an education paper, Samoan studies, Pacific studies, was all over the place. I think finding papers that you enjoy, even if you haven't taken them yet and you're just reading the little blurb and you like what's there, taking those and finding the joys in those papers are good in helping you find yourself as a person. They help to build your own identity as an intellectual. Yeah, I definitely recommend uni to young Pasifika people. It just equips you with the tools you need to move forward and make change.
I'm Tyrone Macaulay. I'm COO at Pickpock. We are one of New Zealand's largest game developers, possibly the largest. We've been making games for about 23 years. I had a Pacific Island scholarship at Victoria University, bonded to IRD for a couple of years, and so I work with them under that scholarship. My mother is 3/4 Samoan. She grew up in Apia, and my grandfather's from Savaii. I decided to study engineering because, well, you know, there were courses in computer science, physics, things that were very deterministic, but games were a creative expression of that. So I learned all the raw skills I needed, which are surprisingly quite important in building video games. Games are fun. And when I learned that games were an expression of both mathematical and scientific capabilities, I was hooked. And then, you know, learning subjects like computer graphics and things like that just brought all of the things that I love dearly into a creative space. You know, Pasifika people are known as quite musically talented and creative, and there are a number of people in film and media, not so much in my space, but really it's just another form of creative expression. And the pathway to that is learning about engineering. Engineering is the tool which allows you to express interactive creativity. I'm a huge rugby supporter, and of course I love making games. For many years, I always wanted to make a rugby game, and about 15 years ago, I got that opportunity. Ended up making both rugby and rugby league games for 10, 12 years. I got to meet many All Blacks. I got to do motion capture at Weta Studios. I got to meet Jonah Lomu. I got to tackle Jonah Lomu. You know, I never imagined in my wildest dreams that this would be part of my career. And that was great. And there are a lot of great Pasifika sports people that I've got to meet over the years because of my love of engineering and turning that into my passion for games. I was always fascinated by interactive entertainment, and I badgered my parents when I was like 11 years old to buy an Atari 600 XL, which you could program on, and taught myself to program at around 11 years old, and then was hooked ever since. I mean, there are serious applications of games now that you know, help people with various ailments, mental conditions. They get them active in ways that I didn't think they could. They help them train their brain. There are gamification of you know, various aspects of learning that have come out as well. So you know, games and game theories can be applied in many different contexts. Now, university is what you make of it, and the big light bulb for me came very early on, even before I came to university, is like when you understand how you can apply mathematics, science, computer science, and make beautiful creative expressions that are interesting and fun to play with, and how all these things feed in together, it gave everything purpose. And you know, you come to university and you learn so many skills that allow you to do wonderful, beautiful things. Engineering is amazing. Like in computer science in particular, for me, it's such a creative outlet. You can ask a computer to do anything you want. You can imagine in your mind. Your only limit is really your imagination. And engineering is the tool which helps you express that.
My name is Morris Sapor Wilson. I'm 21 years old. I'm in my final year at Victoria University, studying a Bachelor of Arts, triple majoring in Pacific Studies, Samoan Studies, and theatre. Theatre is an expression of performing arts and writing. It's about sharing your story and expressing it your way. I took Theatre 320, which was a devising paper where I got to devise my own solo piece. And so I wanted to pay homage about my life and my journey and my cultural identity, but also put that influence of gender and how gender is perceived in Samoan culture. My piece is about a testimony of my life. So there's a character called Alofa Hibiscus Tupua Wilson, which is somewhat a character of myself, and she enters a beauty pageant, the Miss Samoa pageant. And so not only am I looking into that deeper side of that character, but also wanted to highlight the aspect of third gender and Samoan culture, which is whawhawhine. So Alofa Hibiscus Tupua Wilson is a whawhawhine. I think it's important to recognize that there's so much history that has been hidden away, and I want to bring that up and open it up for others to know and learn about. I did certainly explore that area of my character going through some well-being issues such as depression, anxiety. So I wanted to make this character look very vulnerable. very sad, but also find her way in trying to uplift herself. And through this, I think in Pacific culture, we need to do more of that and upbringing each other up as a community, but also as a minority. I've learned so much from this experience. I never knew that I could add my own culture and identity to education. And even applying my Samoan and Pacific studies to theatre even helped me learn so much more about who I am as a person, but how many opportunities there are available out there in the world. We never realized that we could actually just add our own story to education. We always think of education as something that is different away from who we are as a person, and we can't really add much value to that, especially with our culture and identity. But adding those aspects into education actually makes things so more dynamic and more relatable to those who can relate to your own story. If it's not your thing, I still encourage you to come, because there are so many options and so many things out there that can lead you to so many opportunities through jobs, through everything. If I can do it from someone who lives in the heart to like doing my final years here at Victoria, anyone can do it, honestly.
Talofa lava, o lo ingoa whaalangilangi tu mawave o umatua o tautasi ma piilua tu mawave mai whalewha ma le whanga o au le Samoa. Ma na o sau mai Samoa I New Zealand I luafe ma le tolu. Whaalangilangi tu mawave, my parents are Pilua and Tautasi tu mawave, and I've been in New Zealand since 2003. I came here in the Pasifika quota. One of the reasons why I decided to study law was I wanted a way to really be able to impact people. My dad also played a role in why I ended up being a lawyer, because as the eldest of my generation and my dad's the eldest of his generation, I needed to really do something that was going to really inspire my siblings and my cousins and my many extended relatives. So yes, here I am. The paper that I did for one of my master's paper, which was a health law course, was what I did was I looked at the Mental Health Compulsory Assessment and Treatment Act in 1992, and what really triggered the interest there was at the same time I was working at the court, the family court, and I was traveling with judges to conduct their mental health hearings. And after having flipped through many pages of the legislation, I just realized that there was nothing culturally appropriate or culturally responsive to Pacific Island patients who, during my time at the family court and during my time with the judges at the hearings, many of the patients that came before us were either Pacific Islanders or Māori, and I just didn't think the act was appropriate for them. And so what happened then was I knew I needed to use my master's, my time at university to really come up with solutions to hopefully provide some sort of opportunity to revamp this legislation, or to, trigger the Parliament to, have a look at this legislation again. And so after research, I came across the whānau whale model. And what the whānau whale model is, it is simply a model that sets out, key factors or key ingredients that contribute to to good health living for Pacific Island people. And so this whānau whale model uses the metaphor of a whale, and what it represents is that for a whale to stand firm, it needed its pole or post and its foundation and its roof to stand firm, and that is a representation of a person. And so that's essentially what I did. I took the model and I suggested that we could use it. This can go a long way in informing the way clinicians, conduct their assessments and their treatments, when they're looking at a Pacific Islander patient, moving away from, treating or curing people by prescribing medication, but instead really thinking about the social context of this person, their cultures, their values, their spiritual understanding. The support mechanisms that I had when I came to university was fantastic. I was very well looked after by the Māori and the Pasifika community down at law school, albeit it's small, but it was powerful in the small numbers that we had. When you do come to uni, you know you're going to be engaged, but also you know that there is a greater purpose for why you want to study the thing that you are going to study. It's all about impact.
Ko whakapuna te maunga, ko wairo te awa, ko ngā tika hungunu te iwi, ko Corridors toko ingoa. Talofa lava, o loo ingoa Corridors Escott. Kia ora koutou, my name is Corridors Escott. I am a Samoan Māori Palangi in the School of Engineering and Computer Science, and I also studied software engineering at Victoria University.
I'm Tana Tanoi. I am a game developer at Dinosaur Polo Club, and I'm a half-caste Samoan that studied software engineering at Victoria University. The reason I wanted to do engineering was just like, I was always good at maths, and being dyslexic, I was pretty bad at words. So I just really wanted to make video games. But then I kind of realized that video games was a rock star job. So I was like, what if I did software engineering? And then once I got into engineering, I realized that words were really important as well. And I kind of found my love for writing there as well. And then afterwards, I ended up getting a game development role anyway.
So I was the opposite to Tana. I was terrible at maths and good with words. And I took a computer science paper as an interest paper that I thought that might be something interesting. And I found that I liked that more than I expected to. I wasn't very good at it. But I really enjoyed it, so I decided to stick with it and see where it would take me.
One of the things we've been real passionate about, especially since getting into the software development industry, is that diversity is really important and severely lacking in Māori and Pacifica people. So one of the things we've been trying to do is just outreach to high school kids and go, hey, engineering is actually really cool and you should be in it. So one of the things I did is I made a game where it was a cooking game where you make sapasui, and it's a meal that's very dear to my heart.
Food is a big way to kind of connect with your culture, and I think you don't think of Māori and Pasifika when you think of computers, right? I mean, you don't even think of people, you just think of numbers and robots.
This is something you can do, and this is something the world needs. It needs more Māori and Pasifika voices on digital platforms.
Because the games are they're primarily there to help education around the basics of programming. So we didn't want to make anything too complex. We've just made a simple memory game with animals, and then we've done it in a way so it's not only for Samoa, not only for New Zealand.
Because the visual component is still there, it doesn't require you to know Samoan to play the game. But you should pick some things up as you play.
I can't speak for Tana, but growing up in New Zealand, being Māori Pasifika, but also Pākehā, I felt not disconnected, but I always wanted to be more connected to my Māori and Pasifika roots. And I think that simple things like having games that acknowledge and would help me learn some of those things. There are so many different things that you can do. Like Tana makes games, I do research, and we did the same degree. I have a friend she makes robots. So, and I think that's kind of something you don't know until you get here. I think you might think you have a plan, but coming to university helps you sort of really figure out what that plan is. Engineering lets you solve problems
in really creative ways.
Talofa lava ro ingoa o Pisao Filipo Siakisali, kusau malingu o Le Kongo ma Lokupu e ma ala I Paka. Talofa in Pisao, I am of Samoan descent. My parents come from the villages of Le Kongo and Lokupu e from Samoa. I studied a Bachelor of Laws at Victoria University, and alongside my Bachelor of Laws, I studied a Bachelor of Commerce with majoring in Management and Human Resources. I was enrolled in the Laws 524, Global Issues and Intellectual Property. We were allowed to choose our own topics, and I thought because I wanted to have a Pasifika lens, I wanted to look particularly in how traditional knowledge and expressions of culture were being protected by the law. There's so many examples of where the traditional knowledge and expressions of culture have been abused and being misappropriated. The first example is Nike, and a few years ago they released some women's activewear, bra and some tights. On the clothing was tatau pattern, be'a. And the be'a is actually a male tattoo, and to have that on a sports bra is only offensive because it's male patterns on females, but it's also culturally insensitive in that we don't show so much skin. Our tatau or our tattoos have meaning, they have stories behind it. They tell the stories of our ancestors, the struggles that we have. So for the Moana costume, you shouldn't be able to put on somebody's skin or somebody's tattoos when it's convenient, and when it's not convenient, they just take it off. To put that on children, on anybody that doesn't understand context of it, is a classic case of using our culture to gain economic benefit. So with the runway fashion, oh my gosh. It's atrocious that they believe that that's okay. So it's sexualizing our culture, and that's not who we are. So going out there and being naked like that is a huge no-no. We need to make sure that it's not culturally offensive. And second, if you're going to benefit from these products or what service or whatever you are wanting to use with our traditional knowledge and expressions of culture, some sort of compensation should be given back to the community. Having these 2 degrees allows me to go out into the workforce and have this, engage in the workforce, but have a Pasifika lens. That's the beauty of coming to university and having these degrees, so you're able to use these tools.
Talofalava, my name is Andrew Matautia. I am from Samoa and the villages of Iva and Malie. I really enjoyed what I did in my BA, so I came back and did an actual design degree, which kind of pretty much put me where I am today. A lecturer came and saw that I was struggling with all the assignments, and she just suggested, why don't you incorporate some of your culture into your work? And then after that, from then on, I started doing that, and I really started to excel. So DLF stands for Design-Led Futures. The assignment asked us to look at the future 40 years from now. The uni had just got some new 3D scanning equipment. And so it was, how can I take my family and my culture with me into the future? And so I created 3D scans of my parents so my grandkids can see where they've come from and see their lineage. I think what I learned from that video is, and maybe hopefully what others will learn, is what inspires them to move forward, So I exhibited my master's work in White Space Gallery, and the exhibition was called Sauninga. So the inspiration behind the bandages on my master's series was about culture without a voice. The guy with the whip and the red necklace, that was more about Samoa and like how we are not allowed to talk about our own culture within a Western setting. And there's also a way of living where I talk about the va between brother and sister. We are not allowed to do certain things with your sister. And the other one was about moving with grace, which represents dancing and how we use dance to celebrate as a celebratory type of event. And so there's also another a theory called tava, which looks at relationships. And within those relationships, we look at the space, not the space that separates us here and now, but the space that connects us. It's also like how the sea, although it separates us, it also connects us. And then there's the last piece within the series. It's called the taualunga, which is one of my favorite ones. After every gathering, they do this taualunga. And so it's sort of a celebration. And I kind of wanted to show that I want to celebrate and give thanks to people like Nan, the lecturer who allowed me to think, to bring my culture within my assignments. The whole challenge is to try and change people's way of thinking. And when we put this way of thinking into one of the first year assignments, we also challenged non-Pasifika and Māori students to think about, where are they from? And it was really interesting where we found that we asked kids to think about their cultures. And within the cohort that year, it was really funny to see that it was the non-Pasifika and Māori who found it really hard to think about their cultures, whereas Pasifika and Māori had a lot to draw from.
After having watched these videos, consider how an assignment in your own discipline may be addressed from your own unique cultural framework. This not only offers you the opportunity for lateral thinking and imaginative responses, but it also enables your own unique voice to be heard.